Speech Pitch by Iska Sak.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Speech Pitch. I'm Pascal.
And I am Spyretta Leivaditi. Today we're here to keep you company while you're getting ready for Interspeech 2024. We collected a bunch of information about Kos, which is the island that is hosting Interspeech this year, and of course some more particular information such as how you can travel from the airport to the conference venue itself, what to pack, the food culture of the country, fun activities, and of course some survival Greek.
Perfect. To start off with, let's talk a bit about Kos, about the island itself. And probably our audience doesn't know it yet, but Spyretta, you're actually from Greece. So I just know that Greece has over 200 inhabited islands, and I think it's safe to assume that you haven't traveled to all of them, right? Do you know, or do you have any relation to Kos itself?
No, actually I'm from the mainland, so I also had to do some research and look up some things about Kos. But I have a friend who is helping and co-hosting the Young Female Researchers in Speech workshop, which is a satellite event of Interspeech, and I'm really grateful for all the information she gave to me.
Oh, perfect. So we are starting off more or less on the same level and see how we can convey our knowledge to all our listeners. So let's start a bit with the geography of Kos. Greece has several groups of islands actually. As I mentioned, Kos is part of the Dodecanese chain. So, a little fun fact here, Kos is supposed to be the first inhabited island in the wider area of these Dodecanese chain islands. It's in the Aegean Sea, which is to the east of Greece. And Greece or Greek people are so obsessed with seafaring throughout the centuries that there are actually quite some different terminologies for ocean, sea, and wherever you are on the water.
Yeah, it's funny. It's actually funny what you're mentioning, because indeed ocean for us is like what we call deep sea, and the sea is like the body of water that you see from the coast. And the whole Mediterranean, we call it a sea because it's not as deep as an ocean. Also, the Dodecanese chain, in Greek it actually means 12 islands, and that's why we call it Dodeka means 12. So Dodecanisa means like 12 islands. So yeah, it's a really nice memory mechanism for, be sure where you're traveling to.
Absolutely, and quite some nice background knowledge from our Greek expert here, of course. Have to tap into that knowledge. Yeah, apart from that, you can say that Kos is actually quite close to Turkey. And the island of Rhodes, which people might heard of maybe from the Colossus of Rhodes, is a bit to the south actually. So it's a good opportunity to just travel around by ferries if you want to explore other islands, right?
Actually, yes, you can arrive to Kos by ferry from Athens, and you can actually take other ferries that they can get you to the other islands of the Dodecanese chain. Also, you can travel to Turkey via Kos. What else do we know? I think we know, the other stuff we know is like that the main city is on the northern end of the island. It's relatively big island, like 42.1 kilometers by 11.5 kilometers. So you can just conquer the island by foot only.
Yep, and we get later to means on how to get around the island, especially to the conference venue, of course, where everyone wants to go for Interspeech. And I have a little fun fact now, moving on a bit toward the history part. We'll just briefly mention what happened, because it's Greece, like everything has some kind of history and ancient ruins lying about. So the name Kos was actually mentioned first in the Iliad, like the big long text from Homer.
It is actually an epos.
The epos, yeah, of course. If you, it's a good point. Like if you want to call it properly, it's not just some piece of text. It's epic. It's an epos, sure. But the name stuck around since then.
Yeah, it is also said that probably the name came from king's daughter. I think the name of the king was Triope II.
Exactly.
It is also a place rich in historical sites like Nymphaeum, Therma, Roman Odeon, Casa Roman. There is also a small monastery, the Adimachian Castle, or Asclepio.
Asclepio is actually a very good keyword, and I found it very interesting researching about Kos that Kos is actually the birthplace of Hippocrates, the father of medicine, as you could say. So actually doctors nowadays, I think at least in the Western world, still swear the Hippocratic Oath, which in a nutshell tells don't harm your patients and maybe keep the stuff that they tell you confidential. It's quite influential and relevant also nowadays, as you see. And other things that this dude basically did was, for once, coming up with a means to distinguish different sorts of disorders, which, was quite a novelty back then. And one thing that you still might know nowadays is to give a prognosis. So to tell you how long you might still live with a disease, I guess.
It's kind of a prediction of how long disease will last, or what some specific symptoms can cause. Kos is a Greek island, so it is in Greece. The official language is Greek. And why I'm saying that is because, I don't live in Greece anymore. I live in Netherlands. And a lot of people believe that my first language is English. No, we speak Greek, not the Asian kind or modern kind.
Ooh, nice.
The currency of Greece is actually euro. You can paying is actually quite well spread. In general, paying in with a point of sale machine, or as we call it, POS or POS machine, is very common in Greece. You can pay with your credit card or with your debit card. But to be honest, it's a good strategy to have some cash with you just in case something goes terribly wrong with the machine.
Perfect. That sounds good. Yeah. Especially me as a German, we are known for having lots of cash around, but admittedly, I also quite used to the convenience of just paying by card. So that sounds like a good call for me.
Well, for us, in Netherlands, it's so uncommon. Everyone is working with their card or with their phone, even with their watches nowadays.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, it's best if you have some cash, and if you are left with some cash of with some euros, you can always use them to buy some souvenirs and stuff like this. This is how I do it at least when I go in a country that it doesn't have euro.
And maybe coming to a more sensitive topic, how safe is Kos in particular, I would say?
Well, we don't know much about if there are any particular areas that you should avoid or something. We're not locals, unfortunately, and Arya didn't mention anything bad about the island. So, in my opinion, we should have your common sense. The general caution applies when you're traveling.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable. From a European perspective, I think Greece would be normal. You would not expect any violent shootings or any stuff like this going on the streets. But of course, be aware of pickpockets, and it's a touristic place, so be aware of tourist traps and all the associated risks. Use common sense, as Spyretta said. I think you should be safe with that.
So, for example, just avoid if someone tries to sell you anything like alcohol or, I don't know, tobacco on the streets. Just avoid these people. Say no and go.
Perfect. Yeah.
As for something important, it's more for your safety. If you are the kind of people that wish to use taxis, the taxis in Greece on top, where the taxi word is written, there is a small number. So when you enter the taxi, you can send that number to your friends and family, so they know when you get on and when you get off from the taxi, and they have also your number. Or it's a good practice, because if you forget something in the taxi, you can always call to the taxi driver center and say, hey, I was in that taxi with that number and I forgot, for example, my phone or something like this.
Perfect. Yeah, that's covering that topic quite nicely, I think. And now, on the bright side, we could talk a bit about the weather, of course, since, yes, Greece. And else, even at that time of the year, I think the climate should be quite warm and quite sunny. So it's a typical Mediterranean climate,
summer.
Right? Yes, it's still summer in September. It's amazing.
Usually I would never say that to anyone, but I think that you should stay in the shadows, guys. Otherwise you will get really sunburned. Kos has a typical Mediterranean climate. It is characterized by hot, sunny days and humidity levels ranging from 50% to 75%. August is the hottest month, with temperatures slightly dipping into September. The averaging highs is 31 degrees and the lows is 22 degrees.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, just don't forget to grab also a small jacket or cardigan, as all Greek mothers would tell you.
Perfect, absolutely, yeah. And the nice thing is that also, especially inside the conference venue and usually shops and buildings in the city, there is air conditioning, AC, so you can stay cold while you're inside. But outside it's gonna be very warm. Yeah, just the common sense applies here as well. Avoid wearing dark colors to not heat up too much. There's some other few tips, of course, that apply. Stay hydrated, so carry a reusable water bottle. Even consider bringing some electrolytes. Wear breathable fabrics like cotton or linen to keep cool. You can even bring an umbrella against the sun. Wear sunglasses. And of course, Kos is an island, so there's lots of water around it. So it's perfect to take a quick swim to cool off.
Yeah, and actually, if you decide to do that swim, make sure that you avoid the time between 12 p.m. till 4 p.m. as the sun is like directly above the island and it's quite hot.
And additionally, if you go for a hike, that same thing applies. Just be aware that if you do stuff outside, it's very hot. And for hikes especially, let people know where you are, especially if it's a remote path that's off the beaten path where you are sure to encounter other tourists. And further, also avoid areas with long grass, since there's quite a risk of bugs in parts, but especially snakes. They might not be necessarily poisonous, but just be safe.
Since we start talking about what to do and what to wear, maybe I think it's the right moment to start talking about what we should pack. And I would say don't forget your swimming gear. And if you're a presenter in Interspeech, don't forget your poster, your pointer, or have a backup files of your presentation and your poster in a USB stick, laptop, charging adapters.
And relatedly, of course, one thing that we in Germany are particularly famous about is to norm everything and be very systematic. So also Greece has a very lovely system for the wall adapters, for the socket, for the power plugs. So in Greece, you will use Type C and Type F plugs for the pros, which are basically the common European plugs. They should fit there. But be sure to check in detail which system you're using in your country and ensure that you bring proper adapters so that you can charge your electronic devices also on Kos.
And actually, as a person with a lot of weird allergies, I have to admit, probably it's a good idea to get your own first aid kit, have your own paracetamol and histamine pills, activated carbon and stuff like this. You never know what can happen. And of course, you can always go to a local pharmacy, which is actually called faɾmaʻcio. But sometimes you cannot find the exact same medicines that you have in your country in another country. And then you have to search for the drastic substance, and you have to explain to the pharmacist exactly what you're looking for, so it might be a big hassle. So it's better if you get your own first aid kit.
And further, don't forget, against the scorching sun, as we said, a hat, sunglasses, sunscreen. And since the beaches can be quite rocky on Kos, one thing that could be some nice thing to bring along would be water shoes. So shoes that you could just take into the water itself and that protect you against some sharp clamp shells, but also just rocks, stones. And if you want to be even more professional, you could consider bringing some sun protecting long sleeve t-shirts you might find in some local sports shop.
And maybe as you're getting prepared for the flight too, maybe a good idea is to have your neck pillow, earplugs, or a sleep mask. Depends what your needs are. Get them, from your home, that they are much more cheap than buy them in the airport.
And that's actually a good keyword. While we are traveling, we can now assume that we packed our bags, landed safe on Kos. Yeah, and let's see now how we can go from the airport, of course, to the conference venue of Interspeech. Assuming, or when we started this, we were assuming that, hey, there's an airport, there's a conference venue, you just step out of the airplane and you are right at the conference. But turns out, unfortunately, it's more difficult than that. So let's see how we can get there.
So actually, there is no direct bus connection between the airport and the conference venue. However, there are different ways to arrive, like by bus or by taxi. If you are choosing the bus, there are two types of buses. There are intercity buses, also known as KTEL, and the city buses. They are just regular buses. So actually, what you need to do is to take a bus from the airport, an intercity bus, a KTEL bus, from the airport to the city center, and then from the city center to find the starting point of the city buses, and from there you can take a bus that gets you into the conference. Actually, we're going to share more details about the timetables and the schedules and the pricing in our description and in this podcast description. The second way you can get to the conference is actually by taxi. And I guess to get the taxi from the airport and go to the city center or to your hotel, usually it takes like up to 50 euros, 50, but I don't know, the prices may change. If you're living in the city center and you want to go to the conference, you can again take a taxi. It's quite cheap in Greece, and in particular in Kos, it is like 3.8 euros per 3 kilometers. And I think the distance is around 11 kilometers between the city and the conference center. So we can do the math.
Yep. And on buses in general, I would be curious to see how you can get around with them on Kos in particular. So I think there are quite some cultural or country-wide differences between how buses work and how you get around with them. So, the first thing is, how does a bus stop actually look like?
Oh, it just actually looks like normal bus stops with a small bench and a cover and a sign. But sometimes, when you are not in the city center, you are more into the highway where there are a lot of bus stops, sometimes it is just one sign, a really square small sign. So keep your eyes peeled and check when you're traveling how your bus stop looks like, so you don't miss it.
Perfect. Yeah, that's quite some valuable piece of advice, I think. And another thing that, of course, you have to be aware of is that there are different customs on where exactly to enter the bus. So sometimes you can enter in the front, sometimes you can also enter in the back. I think it's safe to say on Kos the default is to enter in the front, just to be sure, and observe others how they do it. And another important aspect might be also how to signal the driver to stop while you're waiting at the bus stop itself.
Actually, yeah, you just have to extend your hand and sign them that they have to make a stop, otherwise they're not going to stop. And as for the tickets, I think you can buy them in small kiosks or at the starting point of the bus lane. I'm not quite sure if you can buy them on the bus, but always be prepared, and then check again if you take the bus if the local people are buying the ticket on the bus. So yeah.
Oh, that's also very good advice, I think. And one thing that I found particularly useful is that apparently it's quite rude to show someone else the outstretched front-facing hand. Like if you show all 5 fingers directed towards someone, that is similarly like vicious as giving someone the middle finger. So yeah, just keep that in mind and don't annoy the bus driver by some gestures like that.
So please don't extend your palm with your all fingers open and, show your palm to the face of someone, because this is quite rude.
Once you're on the bus, there should be some button that you can press to signal the bus to stop or tell the driver if nothing like that exists on the buses in Kos. It's also probably convenient to have your mobile phone at hand and either check on Google Maps or other map apps where to get out. It's also convenient, I guess, to have your mobile phone at hand to be able to show the bus driver when you enter the bus to ensure that it's actually the right bus that you're boarding, and also to track when you have to get out exactly.
Actually, I also want to mention that don't forget always to be polite and say good morning or something to the bus drivers. They are human beings and they are very, very, very kind. And okay, there is a high chance that there is going to be big traffic, so maybe the buses are not very punctual. It's really common in Greece since there are no specific bus lanes. So no matter how upset you may be because of the weather and the heat, just don't forget to be kind. They are working 8 to 10 hours a day in the sun too. So yeah, just be kind.
Yeah, perfect. That's always a good advice, I guess. And yeah, if there's further questions, especially for traveling from the airport to the conference venue, also feel free to reach out to the organizers. It's also their job, of course, to deliver some details here.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting you, Pascal, but I think I forgot to mention that there is also an app which is called Kos Near Bus, and you can find information about the bus lines and the stops and everything.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, thanks. That's also a good call, seeing that there's some digital advances going on here too. One last thing that is quite relevant in the line of attending Interspeech, joining the conference, is of course the hotels or a place to stay. If you did not book your hotel yet, then of course check first the reimbursement policy of your university to ensure that whatever you book is getting reimbursed properly. And booking as a group is of course always an option to help you to save money if other people from the institute are also traveling there.
Actually, another pro tip for me is to book directly through the hotel's website, or calling them directly can also save you up a lot of money, because the staff of the hotels should be able to communicate in English, especially if you call from a non-Greek number. Be careful with the cancellation policy through though, and check if you can book an option where you get a sufficient refund in case you have to cancel last minute. What else? I guess, another interesting information for people who will join satellite events that start the last day of August. Booking this way will save them money because hotel rooms have different rates for August and September. September rates are cheaper than August. The hotel representatives are obliged to let you know and charge you with the different rates.
All right, let's finally move on to my favorite topic, food. The Greek cuisine, at least in Europe, is renowned to be quite excellent. Almost as good as the Italian one, I dare say.
Don't forget the Spanish cuisine.
Damn it, yeah. So my associations especially are, when you think about Greece, you have olive oil, feta cheese. Actually, in Germany, you get Greek yogurt. And for beverages, there's, of course, wine. There are pastries like sweet delights. So these are all things that come to my mind. But I guess you, as a Greek person, might have some additional insight tips here on what to try and what is to be highlighted, especially for Greek.
Indeed. We have like some sweets that they are called spoon sweets, because when you give them to your guests, they cannot eat more than one spoon because they are way, way too sweet.
That sounds very efficient indeed, yeah.
Some of them are one of them is actually called submarine, and that's a funny story behind that, because it is kind of a white paste of sugar and glucose, and you put it in your spoon, and then you have really cold glass of water, and you throw this thing in your in your glass. You can stir it a little bit, start eating it slowly as we are talking, and then the water gets a little bit the taste of the submarine. When we finish your spoon sweet, then you can drink the cold water, and to be honest, it's one of my favorites. It's like the very first traditional sweet that my grandparents gave to me. Other recipes that actually we have in common with Turkey is like baklava or halva. The main difference between the two, like the two countries when they are preparing these two sweets, is that baklava has in Greece is mainly with walnuts, but in Turkey they have like pistachio and almonds. So more or less it's the same technique, but really different ingredients inside.
Of course, they're completely different and not related at all. You cannot tell that to a Greek person. So, but that sounds delicious. I mean, I really look forward to all the delights that await there. So another very tasty thing, kind of food to try, is Greek honey. So Greek honey is similar to olive oil, actually quite renowned. And one thing you can get actually on the island are full honeycombs. So you have the honeybee that builds the hive, and then within there you have these hexagonal combs, the honeycombs, and you can get like really a full load of them and chew them like chewing gum, actually with the whole wax of the honeycomb. And
minus the bees.
Minus the bees, yeah, of course. They would sting you. So that's also important to know. Like, don't eat the bees. They will not agree with being eaten. But yeah, as you said, like Greek honey is having quite some quality, quite some good flavor. And it goes quite well together with goat cheese, actually.
Yeah, actually it is quite like one of my favorite recipes, and they make them a lot in small restaurants like taverns. They kind of fry, or they deep fry cheese inside of a puffy pastry, and then above, like they put like honey and sesame. Oh my god, it's perfect. It's just perfect.
I'm looking so
I'm
forward
already
to that.
drooling.
Oh yes. Yeah, and another very, very nice thing to look forward to is of course seafood. I mean, because it's an island, and you can pretty surely assume that they have quite some nice and fresh fish available there. Octopus, calamari as well, of course, is a typical seafood accessory, I would almost say, that you can get. But there's also a very nice fish soup, Spyretta. May you help me pronounce the name?
Yeah, it is called ksenoðoʻçio.
Psarosupa. Okay.
Yeah, psari means fish, and supa means soup. So psarosupa.
Okay, the last term at least is quite intuitive. It sounds quite delicious actually. Like, you get fish fresh from the sea, you put it in the soup, done, here you are.
Other recipes that they're quite famous among tourists, especially those who eat meat without remorse, is pita gyros.
Gyros. Okay, I know this as gyros in Germany, but
Yeah.
gyros sounds more Greek. I give you that. Good call.
Or moussaka, which is a casserole made of layers of eggplants, potatoes, mincemeat, and creamy bechamel sauce. Or other really, really typical recipes that we eat in Greece, because of course all the Balkans and in Turkey they also have similar recipes such as spanakopita, tiropita, and kreatopita, which is actually savory pies. Spanakopita is like a spinach pie, tiropita is cheese pie, and kreatopita means pie with meat. I'm just mentioning now stuff that scream childhood to me. Is like sujukat. Which is actually mincemeat in red sauce. It's like, I cannot explain that. It's like mincemeat meatballs that are really well cooked in red sauce like a stew, or rabbit stew. It's like one of the most famous stews in Greece and most delicious. It has a lot of lovely shallot, onions and stuff like that.
Amazing. But be careful not to scare off our vegetarian or vegan listeners as well. For sure, for meat lovers you get very nice offer of variety in Greece, but do you also know what's good for vegans or vegetarians?
Oh yeah, we have like traditional Greek dishes that are naturally vegetarian, or you can easily adapt those recipes.
Whew, good news. Good news.
Yeah, because, we're not that barbaric. It is true. I dare to say most of our recipes are vegan or vegetarian, such as stuffed tomatoes like bell peppers, or the spanakopita I told you before. Actually, the only thing that is not vegan is the cheese inside. The rest is like totally vegetarian. And we have various fresh vegetable dishes such as gigadas, which are like huge beans, usually made in the oven, or dolmadakia, which is, imagine like a sushi roll, but the outside is like made of vine leaves and the inside is like rice. Sometimes it has meat, so always ask if they are vegetarian. Dolmadakia.
Dolmadakia. Okay,
Yes,
perfect.
yes.
Yeah. No, I know the proper name, like stuffed vine leaves, dolmadakia. Perfect.
Oh, sorry. I know that I am overpowering this section. I'm so sorry, Pascal. But, when it comes to food and restaurant, I also get so excited. So something that has to do more with the culture of eating. In Greece, usually dinner is around 8 p.m. to 10 p.m. But most of the restaurants and places that you can eat or you can have fun, they stay open till the early morning. So have fun and be respectful, as I said before. I have to admit that the cocktails in Greece might be a little bit strong. So you don't need a pre-game. No pre-game is required if you go for drinks in Greece.
It's also very good to know. And good to know what to expect from the bartender. Another interesting thing that I found is that you actually get water served for free along that, at least in Germany, is not a given. And further, you also get some nice serving of olive oil and bread for free. I mean, remember olive oil? The big thing about Greek cuisine.
Another free thing that usually comes after is like the dessert. If you don't choose a dessert, you will receive a dessert which is out of the catalog, out of the menu. It is homemade, usually. And it might be like a dessert or it might be like fresh fruit. So after your dinner, for sure, they're going to give something to you. But it's always on the house.
Nice service. Yes, perfect.
I mean, if you really want to taste the Greek traditional cuisine, I highly recommend to go to places that they have the word taverna or mageriko in their name, because those type of restaurants really cook the food in the most old-fashioned mama style way. So
delicious.
I highly recommend those places. Plus they're quite cheap. Something also very important and very unusual for non-Mediterranean people is that actually when you go and order something in a Greek place, and it might not be the most fresh, then usually the waiter may say to you, you don't want to eat that today, maybe tomorrow or the day after, so please try that, and then the waiter will redirect you to dishes that they are mostly fresh. I'm reassuring you, they're not trying to sell anything which is more expensive to you. No, they don't do it for that. No, they just care about what you're eating and they wish to see you again. So if you choose to go to that restaurant again and again, trust me, you will see this happening, and the more happy they will be to serve you, and they will give you more treats and more stuff. We are like very, very giving as people.
Awesome, yeah, that sounds really like worthwhile to go to some taverna or manjerico. Perfect, good idea.
And to be honest, exactly because I love so much food, to me the best souvenirs are actually spices or spirits from Greece, such as ouzo, raki, or as we call it, raki, and țețiʻa, wine, spices like oregano or thyme, and of course tea is really nice, honey. The only reason I am like bringing all those things as souvenirs and I share them with my friends is because I always feel like I am bringing back some magic from my home, because my culture is so close to having like the family around the table, and we show our love through food. So yeah, you can imagine how lucky my friends are whenever I come back from Greece.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a good inspiration. It's a good idea just to check out the things that you love on course and trying to bring along some foodie souvenirs. I think that's a good call. Apart from attending Interspeech and enjoying the lovely Greek food, we have prepared a small list of things to do on course apart from work. So we grouped the activities on one hand into short activities that should be also possible during Interspeech, and on the other hand into long activities, which are ideal if you want to stay a bit longer than only for Interspeech. For the short activities, there's, for example, Salidi Beach, which is right next to the conference resort. Coming a bit from an arrogant German perspective, I would say it sounds like nothing too spectacular. It's mostly pebbles than sand, but it's water and it's close to the venue. Well, what can you say?
Well, okay. But you have also the proud Greek girl who will tell you that exactly because of those pebbles, the waters are crystal clear. And as we say in Greece, we don't have sea, we have mirror.
Oh,
you can actually see yourself.
Okay, that sounds amazing. I'm really looking forward to that. Yeah, there is a mirror right next door to the conference venue. Perfect.
But to be honest, I know what you mean, Pascal. And indeed, sometimes those pebbles are really, really hurting your feet. And maybe there are also sea urchins. Oh my God, be careful with those little creatures. I'm not quite sure if the beaches in Kos are clean, but most of the times, if you go to a beach that is organized, meaning that it has like umbrellas and chairs, usually those beaches are quite clean from urchins and they are really safe to swim around. And of course, in case of emergency, if you step on an urchin or if you get stung by a jellyfish, of course you can go directly to the local hospital. So don't worry.
Perfect, yeah.
I will give you all the important information later, like how to talk to the doctor and stuff like that.
That's something to look forward to indeed. Apart from that, there is also Kypriotes Aqualand, at least on Google Maps. I didn't find too much about it, but hey, there should be some water slides and some fun if you don't want to go into the ocean. Further, just looking at the map, there are some hills that go up to roughly 100 meters of elevation with some old churches close by. So while you're attending Interspeech, you can probably not ride half across the island, but it should be very nice for a short hike after a long day of sitting indoors for the whole conference. And it's also good to know that the sun usually sets around 8:30 to 9 p.m. during the time of the conference. So that could be some fun activity just to get some opportunity to take a walk. Further, there is also, as short activities go, Kos City Center. So we mentioned that the city of Kos is quite close to the conference venue and you can just go there by bus. As we said, the city buses should also go to the conference venue. Or what is even more common on a Greek island is bicycle. So you can borrow bicycles, rent bicycles, and take a bike to go to the city center. And it's supposed to be quite nice. It should give you this very nice Greek small town vibe. There are lots of narrow soukakia, small streets in Greek. So they should be fun to explore. Lots of restaurants, of course, as we mentioned. There is efxaɾiʻsto Square. Spyretta just kills herself laughing about
You
my
just
Greek.
butcher it.
Yes, please tell me, how do you say that?
Eleftherias Square, which means Square of Liberty.
Okay, how dare me butcher the Square of Liberty, but there should be nice coffees and restaurants close by, so perfect for some day out. And there's also some ancient Greek ruins. It's called the ancient agora. These are ruins of the former market square, and I think yet again Spyretta can help me with the pronunciation.
With the pronunciation, so it is αρχαία αγορά, συνοικία λιμένος. That's it.
You heard it. That's all you need to know, I guess. No, like it's right in the city center, of course, and I think it's giving you the right old ancient Greek vibe already in the city center. On the other hand, as I said, there are also long activities. So if you have some days to spare after Interspeech or even before Interspeech, after the main conference, we can give you some activities that you might want to visit if you have a bit more time at hand. On one hand, as I already mentioned, on Kos is the birthplace of Hippocrates, and he actually also did most of his work on the island in the so-called Asklepion. Yet again, the stress of the word is killing me.
Mm-hmm.
It looks like it's a bit further from the city center, so you could take a taxi if you want to visit the ruins of that gathering place. And supposedly being there annual or biannual is the so-called Hippokratia, which is a festival that is taking place to honor Hippocrates. And they are supposed to have some reenactment of the whole Hippocratian Eid and stuff, but unfortunately there are no dates given on the official website, so it's best to ask around at Kos spontaneously if that is taking place now. And then finally to whatever most people of you are actually waiting for are worthwhile beaches.
Yeah, but I think I should take over, Pascal, because I don't want you to suffer more.
You're the beach expert with the Greek pronunciations. Go ahead, please. This is yours.
Well, I don't know about how expert I am, but at least I can read them. And I really, really want to say thank you to Aria for this. It is Tigaki Beach, which actually has sand. I use Stefanos Beach, which also has sand, and you can swim around ancient ruins.
Ooh, wow. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, I looked at it in Google Maps, and I was like, I really want to go there. I use Fokas, which is rocky, but it's very, very close to Interspeech. Other places is Kohilari, Limnionas. Oh my god, Limnionas. It looks like a natural lagoon. It's so beautiful. And the colors are like teal and a little bit of dark blue. It's incredible.
Nice.
Yeah, that's all for the beaches.
Perfect. Yeah, no. And while we were talking so much about food and drinks in the last section, one thing that you could do also on the long run while you are at Kos is visiting some vineyards and enjoy actually some wine tasting. Not during Interspeech, of course. Everyone needs to be more or less sober, though there are these nice parties going on as well at Interspeech. So yeah, but I guess like if you go to a vineyard, you want to take some time and enjoy the tasting there. And if you're interested also in history, there is Kos Archaeological Museum in Kos City, which is supposed to be open from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. and should house also some nice ancient statues and other sites within the city center. And then another thing that you can do also, of course, on the long run is to take some longer cycling tours to explore Kos. And we are not exactly sure how it is for the streets, but if this is something that you're interested in general, you can check if there are some very nice bike tours, roads that are suited for bike riding that you could take to explore the city. Similar to hiking, there should be ample opportunity and hiking paths to explore. And if you're interested in that, do some reading and check out some places where you can go. One place that sounded quite interesting while researching is Plaka Forest. In Plaka Forest, there should be peacocks wandering around, which is a sight that you also don't see every day, I guess, so something worthwhile checking out. And lastly, of course, if you want to explore beyond Kos, you should be able to take just some ferry boats right from Kos City. There's one boat that goes directly to
Nisiros. Nisiros.
Nisiros Island, exactly. That's what I said. Nisiros Island, where there's supposed to be some very nice volcanic landscapes that you can explore. As we said, also Turkey is very close by, so you can take some ferry boats to Turkey. Check your visa, of course. It's Turkey. Hey, as you might have guessed, is a different country than Greece.
Great point.
But there's also other small islands from the Dedokanis belt.
Do you want to learn to pronounce it like a Greek person?
Oh, go ahead, of course.
Ðeksiʻa.
Dodekanisa. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, it's easy to go to other islands from the Dodekanisa belt. And while we're at it, another nice thing to do is, of course, to observe all the countless very beautiful sunsets on Kos. And one very prominent location that was recommended to us is
Agios Theologos
beach. Very good. It's
Yeah.
a bit off the beaten path, but it's supposed to be very beautiful. So see if you can get there easily while you are there, and if you can get also away very easily after the sun actually set. But sounds like some nice activities.
And now I think we are in the section that most people are tuning in to hear us right now, right? It's to learn Greek.
Yes.
Greek words for surviving.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think it's quite nice to learn a bit of the basic phrases, at least when you're visiting. As Spyretta says, I would also assume that the locals would be very warm and very open. And if you at least have some haphazard bits and pieces of Greek language, I guess you will have many friends right in Kos City.
Actually, it is quite a touristic place, so most of the people know English, so it will be easy for you to communicate. But in case you want to respect their culture and, try to learn some words, this is the section for you guys.
And also just a small disclaimer, we will put all the stuff in the show notes, in the podcast description below. You don't have to go only by hearing, but you can also read it up there for later.
And you can use the following part to practice your pronunciation with me.
Perfect.
So, Pascal, how you want to do that? You want to tell me words and I will say them in Greek?
That sounds like a good idea. Exactly, yeah. Let's do it that way. Then I don't have to pronounce too much or torture the ears of the listeners by butchering the Greek language. So let's get started with a simple one. That's always an evergreen, I guess. How do you say thank you in Greek?
Efxaṛisto. Efxaṛisto. Efxaṛisto.
Thank you. Perfect. And now you say you're welcome.
Παρακαλώ. Παρακαλώ. Παρακαλώ.
Where's the toilet?
Πού είναι η τουαλέτα? Πού είναι η τουαλέτα? Πού είναι η τουαλέτα? Πού είναι η τουαλέτα?
That's already more advanced. Okay, but I'm willing to learn. How do you say something more easy like water?
NeʻРo. NeʻRo. NeʻRo.
That's very useful, especially with all the summer heat that we're going to be having in September still. What is something very simple such as yes?
Ναι. Ναι.
What? What?
I know it is so weird, especially when in German it is nein, right? Yeah. And in Dutch it's nee. So imagine when I first arrived here in Netherlands and they told me that nee is no, and I was like, no, that's yes.
yeah, I can see the confusion. Okay, that's something important to remember. Everything is upside down there.
Yeah.
It was the opposite, like no.
Όχι. Όχι.
Okay.
Is it okay?
I can live with that.
Yeah, I know that a lot of people get confused because όχι sounds like okay, but it's not. Όχι means no.
Very good. Yeah, that's a very important distinction there. What do you say for left?
Αριστερά. Αριστερά.
And what is right?
Ðeksiʻa. Ðeksiʻa.
And how do you call for help?
Voήθia. And of course with more emotion, like voήθia.
Okay, it sounds
Sorry.
more pragmatic indeed, yeah.
But the word is like voήθia.
And while we're on the topic, what do you say if you see a fire?
Foťța. Foťța.
And how do you say hotel?
Oh, that's a difficult one for people. Ksenoðoʻçio.
Oh, God.
I loved it. Oh, God. Ksenoðoʻçio.
Okay, and how do you say good morning?
Oh, that's easy. Kaliʻmeṟa. Kaliʻmeṟa.
Ah, perfect. I know this actually from the napkins that you get in the Greek restaurants here in Germany. There's some survivor Greek as well. I remember kaliʻmeṟa indeed. I think at Interspeech that might be a better way to use that instead of a Greek restaurant here. So I'm looking forward to meeting people like with kaliʻmeṟa. And what is good afternoon?
Kaliʻspera. kali॒spera, kali॒spera,
And who would have guessed what is good night?
kaliʻnixta, kaliʻnixta. Or you can say καλό βράδυ, καλό βράδυ.
Oh, and what's the difference?
Yeah, actually the main difference is kaliʻnixta is more common, but καλό βράδυ is more local, you know. That's how I differentiate it now, but I think it has to do with how late it is. So if you go away and it's going late, like late at night, then you will say kaliʻnixta. But if it is like afternoon, close to evening, you will say καλό βράδυ.
Perfect.
More or less that's it.
Kaliʻnixta, kaliʻspera, whatever is easier for you to remember should be fine.
Exactly.
And as we said in the beginning, how do you say or how do you ask for a pharmacy?
The word is faɾmaʻcio, faɾmaʻcio. But if you want to say where is the pharmacy, you will say πού είναι το φαρμακείο, πού είναι το φαρμακείο. And the same applies to other places like the hotel. You will say πού είναι το ksenoðoʻçio. So πού είναι το is the first part, and then you add at the end the place you want to go.
No, very nice. That's very convenient and practical to know, just in case of an emergency and you need to get around quickly to some particular place. And the last item in line would be, how do you ask for the hospital?
Nosokoʻmio, nosokoʻmio. But if you want to ask where it is, as I said before, πού είναι το νοσοκομείο? Where is the hospital?
Perfect. So let's hope that we don't need that expression in particular on costs and in general. Thank you so much for listening to us today. We hope that you had some fun and learned a thing or two about costs. We are very much looking forward to seeing all of you at Interspeech 2024.
Stay tuned for the next episode of Speech as we might interview you on premise during Interspeech 2024. Don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcasts, and also follow the ʻiskasak on X and LinkedIn, where we share our latest news with you.
Speech pitch by ʻiskasak.